Hey folks, Carmen here from Urban Farm School. I'm walking around my property early morning here in Calgary, Alberta, my permaculture property, and it's been an incredibly hot summer, so we're seeing a lot of plant stress going on. But what I really wanted to talk to you about today was you've heard me speak in the past about how to leverage the talents of specific plant species in our permaculture garden and our designed ecosystem. uh, Leverage those seasonally, but also by virtue of placement, being able to extend the services that those plants offer. Now, we're really seeing that with this really super hot weather that we're experiencing now, because the plants are under a lot of stress, and the ones that are in full sun have pretty well, they're winding down their services, and that includes some of our pollinator plants, because they're just getting pretty dried out and stressed out, and are finishing a little bit earlier this season than they might otherwise. So when it comes to pollinator plants, we're seeing certain ones that are coming on super hot and heavy with this really hot weather, blooming profusely because of all the spring rain, and then petering out because they're done. They're just done. But because we've taken the strategy on this property to place plants not necessarily where they love to be. So sometimes we'll place some of our plants in full sun. And I'm going to talk specifically about pollinator support species right now. We'll place them in full sun. They'll do their job early. They'll come on hot and heavy, as I mentioned, and the pollinators will have a real party. And then they're finished. But then we'll place some of the same varieties in slightly shadier locations, and then even some in much more shade. And so what we're finding with that strategy is that we're able to prolong the service that those plants are providing to the pollinators for much longer throughout the season. So a case in point, I'm going to turn my camera around. So this is an oregano plant that is situated back here in the back part of my garden here. So I've got this little area here that's sort of a shady, two sets of shady apple tree guilds, and then a little Saskatoon here. And in this area here, adjacent to the greenhouse, we've got this oregano plant. Now, the oregano plants in the front yard that get full sun are just about, their blossoms are really starting to fade. Now this one actually only gets early morning to early afternoon sun, and so it is hanging on to its blossoms quite a bit longer. Yes, it started to bloom a little bit later than the ones in the front, the ones that are in full sun, but it's actually able to support these pollinators a little bit later in the season when most of the other oregano is done. So that's a strategy that we've used. So another case in point, I'm going to walk over here and show you another set of plants. You've heard me talk about this one a lot. Same goes with this thyme that I mentioned in a previous video. It's still blooming back here, whereas in full sun it's finished blooming. I mean, you can really see the difference here. Now this plant gets a lot more sunlight just by virtue of it being a little bit away from the shade of the large tree that's behind me. And this one still blooming because it gets a lot more shade. So crazy, huh? Really awesome. Let's go over here and look at another set of plants. So this is Veronica Speedwell. Now you can see, and look, it's still, the bees are still in here. But now look at this one over here. This plant over here gets a lot more sun. And look at the bees are like they're using every available little blossom, and they're in here pretty heavily. But this one is starting to fade. This one gets a tiny little bit more shade during the day, so you can see it's got a few more blossoms going on. Let's turn around and look at one that gets considerably more shade throughout the day. These here, and especially these. So you can see the blossoms. There's a lot more blossoms on these. So simply by placement, same plant, multiple different locations, is allowing us to allowing us to leverage that talent and ability for a longer period of time. So when I talk about stacking functions in space and time, I'm looking at also this by virtue of plant spacing or plant placement, how we can utilize the talents and abilities of a plant to support our ecosystem in the long term and throughout the season. Thanks for allowing me to share this video with you guys today. Do hope you check us out online at urbanfarmschool.ca. Let us know how we can support you in your desire to live more resilient, happy, and beautiful lives. Take care, folks.